Hey, welcome to the No Guts, No Gain podcast. This podcast is dedicated to help you navigate the journey of buying a Sandler franchise. So whether you've just started the investigation or you're knee deep into the decision process, we've got you covered. Hi, I'm Dave Mattson, Executive Chairman and President of Franchising here at Sandler. In each episode, I'm interviewing a Sandler franchisee who is in your shoes. Now, maybe they were investigating 2 years ago or 2 months ago, but they're gonna share their experiences, their insights, the questions that they had when they were sitting in your chair. The goal of the podcast is to provide you valuable information and firsthand accounts from their perspective that will help you in your decision-making process for you and your family. So sit back, relax, and get ready to hear from those who've already jumped into entrepreneurship with a Sandler franchise. Hey, welcome to the No Guts, No Gain podcast. Today we're in for a special treat. I've got Gerry Weinberg. I've known Gerry for decades, joining us here today. And we're going to talk about really why has Sandler remained relevant of all the shifts that have gone in the marketplace. And I think if you're looking to invest in a business, you certainly want to make sure that you're not the next Blockbuster and you decide to open up a franchise and realize, wow, they weren't on the cutting edge and they didn't stay up with the times. So I really think that today's conversation with Gerry, and Gerry, first, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Gerry, tell the group, because I think I'd like to kind of start off with, your background, how long have you been here? And then kind of move into some of the market shifts that you and I have seen over the last couple of decades together.
Good. So interestingly enough, we just celebrated our 32nd anniversary in this business.
That's awesome.
Which it really is awesome. I had been VP of Sales and Marketing for Sealy Mattress Company for several years here in Michigan. And I thought I was pretty good. And I was a sales manager. When I joined Sandler, I realized I was a horrible sales manager. And I thought I was a great sales guy. So when an opportunity came and we had some legal issues at Sealy Corporate, I looked at what was out there, and I went to Baltimore for some kind of a discovery meeting.
Yep.
And I remember sitting in the audience and saying, I can do this. And I bought the business. I remember writing a check, and I was in the business. And I didn't really know the system, obviously, at the beginning, but I learned. And I had an accountant who was my personal accountant. And he said, you know what, let me introduce you to my firm. And next thing I know, I'm training a bunch of CPAs, and some of them left, and they took me with them to other organizations. And one of the accountant's businesses was a medical organization that catered to manufacturing people who got injured on the job, and they had to sell. And so I got introduced to them, and they became a client. And one of the strongest salespeople there, she introduced me to her ex-husband, who was in the conveyor system business.
Yeah.
And they became a client, and they introduced me to somebody in the glass coatings business, and they became, and it was amazing. And I still didn't, I knew more than they did, but along the way I grew. And what really happened as we became successful is I realized the power of introductions and referrals. We teach how to prospect, but and we did that, but certainly referrals helped. And even to this day, we're being introduced now to much larger clients just because of the success that we've had, and it's wonderful.
So you came in from corporate, no Sandler background, right?
No Sandler background, had never heard of Sandler.
Right. And you said two things that I want to kind of just dig a little deeper before we move on. One is, I didn't really know that much about, I thought I knew management, but not really. Yeah. And you were in a different type of sale than an accountant, let's say, or a manufacturing company.
For
And
sure.
one of the big fears that I hear from newer people looking at the business is, I don't have the exact background that you're looking for. But what you just described is you really get the background and the stories from your clients. You listen,
For
then
sure.
you start to take their stories and bring it to the next client. And pretty soon, after a while, you have your own stories. But
Yeah.
until then, you kind of lean on the power of the material at Sandler, and your clients bring
Yeah.
you the story. So I love that one. And I love the second thing that you talked about, which was, if you do really well with your client, like love them, pay attention to them, they
Yeah.
give you referrals, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. But what's amazing, David, is 32 years later, the core of the business hasn't really changed. Salespeople still talk too much. They don't know how to ask questions or enough questions. They don't get in front of the right people. They do unpaid consulting, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's a gold mine for us.
things
You
don't
know,
change.
and of course, over the years, what has happened is we have gotten so much better personally in terms of, who we are as human beings. The concept being an I-10 that we learned early on in Sandler is so important today. And to be mentally tough, to get through, here we are in Michigan, manufacturing up and down, and Detroit doesn't have, the best economy. And we've thrived just by being good at what we're doing. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, first of all, I've known you longer than I've known my children. That's how long we've known each other, right? I mean, my kids were not born when I met you.
Right.
And the fact that, if you're looking at a franchise, the fact that Sandler has franchises that have been in the business for decades with them is so unusual. I mean, it's just not the case.
True.
Entrepreneurs, they're really picky, and they can leave whenever they want to, because they could be successful wherever they go. They happen to have a great brand behind them here at Sandler, but they can go anytime they want and they'll be successful anywhere. And the fact that we've got people here 32 years is amazing. And you're not by yourself. There's many people that we both grew up together with that have been here for decades and have become personal friends along the way. I mean, that's just
some of my best friends are Sandler people, because we understand each other. We get it.
Yeah. So talk to me about, you said something that I want to kind of jump on, which is, the world has changed, but really the business, the fundamentals of helping people grow themselves, self-esteem, and all the head trash that goes on, and the imposter syndrome, and all this stuff that's been going on since the beginning of time. I mean, I could be in the 1800s talking to a psychologist and telling about the same call reluctance stuff that I'm dealing with today. But also the fact that you still have to engage people. You still have to ask questions, as you said. You still have to make sure that you're dealing with the real issue, and not because they're lying. It's just because maybe they don't know either. And then navigating all the internal stuff and the external stuff. So that's still there. We sometimes complicate it, Gerry, with all the technology and this has changed and that's changed, but people still buy from people. Fair?
Yeah, it's still the same. The difference is we're now dealing in our world, because of our growth, with larger companies, with larger teams. But the principles are still the same, and the psychology is still the same, and learning the issues that exist, and everybody's got issues. And I mean, the most successful companies are really the easiest ones to sell, because they're never satisfied with where they're at. And when we're calling on higher level people, they have urgency and they are decisive. And I mean, this stuff works.
So you've got some changes in the environment. We can go back as far as we want to here, but you've got changes in technology.
For sure.
Learners have changed. I mean, your kids and my kids learn differently than I do, and then you do.
Right.
Their attention spans seem to be a lot shorter. So even how they just absorb information, and you may even have a hybrid situation where you're training at your center there in Detroit, whether it's some are face to face and some are piping in virtually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's walk through some of the major changes that you've seen. If something pops into your head, like what are some of the big ones that you've seen over the last 32 years?
Well, in 1992, when we started, we had a bag phone. There were no real cell phones. We had a fax machine.
Yeah, that's right. We did walk-ins. We did walk-ins back then.
We did walk-ins. Oh my goodness, yeah. And and then I mean, COVID came along 4 years ago, and things adapted.
Everything changed.
So we had we do Zoom, we do hybrid, we still do in-person training.
Yep.
And we've had to adapt our styles to what the audience requires. And we're dealing with people with distances, so not everybody can be face-to-face, and we learn to adapt. And we've learned how to sell over Zoom. I mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
Because of where I come from, in terms of age, I still prefer face-to-face. Okay, because that's my comfort. And so one of the questions we learned early on is to learn how does somebody else like to communicate, whether it's text or email or phone or face-to-face. And we learn to adapt our different styles and understand human behavior and communication personality styles and adapt. I mean, it is acting, but that's what pays off. Yeah. I mean, I used to show up in a suit and tie, and it's a different world today.
Yeah.
But, you dress for your customers, for your clients, and it pays off.
Well, you have, even if I do some shifts here for a second, because we went from books, tapes, and videos. Now it's electronic, right? Yeah. We have avatars, role playing. There's no more you and I on video anymore. It's all computer generated.
Yeah.
There's no more sitting in the office waiting for somebody to make a cold call. That's not happening anymore, right? There's no,
and the phone doesn't ring.
and the phone doesn't ring, right? And you've got all these things that are changing, but yet the basics are the same. And I think you said something else too, which is you have to be able to morph.
Yeah.
And you have to feel comfortable in your own skin to realize Sandler is awesome, but Sandler is the backbone and of doing business, right? And business has changed. So you've got to have to kind of morph and change with it, which is what we've done. I mean, 6 or 7 times that I can think of just whether it's content, learning styles, technology, and things of that nature. And
all of the above.
Right? All the above. So do you think then when you and I started, of course it was easier, right? There wasn't that many moving parts, although I say that and it could be argued one way or the other, I guess. But do you have any thoughts for the newer people coming into the business? Because you also have a twist. You have your daughter in the business now, right? So you actually built a heck of a business, kudos to you. And your daughter came in who was not a salesperson.
Not at all.
Not at all. And I wish people could see the before and after of Alana. It's amazing to me, actually.
I've been there for the whole ride.
Yeah, it's just amazing and it's not Sandler. She's obviously put all the work into it, but really where she has grown into because of her desire and your coaching and things of that nature, it's just amazing. But it's turned into a family business, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. And she's grown it way past that you grew it, which I also think is awesome as well. That's fantastic. What do you think the biggest challenge was up to this point in transitioning from step to step, or do you project anything coming down the pike that you think would be, that's going to be an absolute game changer? That technology, not in a negative way. It's just, that's a game changer. I mean, if you think about our methodology, we've actually gone backwards in time because in the late 90s, we had a selling system that had different words than we did all the way through the 2000s. And now we went backwards and said, you know what? Old is new. and we went back to some of the ways that we did it in the older days and the terms that we used, which was great. But is there anything else that you see out there as far as, there's a pattern? Hey, I think this is the next big thing coming down the pike, or regardless, it doesn't matter, David, we're going to morph again. I mean, what are you seeing out there?
Well, we have so much more to offer companies than when I first started. And with management, we work with entire organizations, people who are in companies who don't sell but still have to communicate. And really, when you come right down to it, Sandler is all about communication. It's having conversations. That hasn't changed, and even with AI, it's not going to change. The biggest difference I see today is, when we started, we were really starting just selling individuals and smaller companies.
Right.
And one thing that we've seen is changes. We're all going to lose customers through no fault of our own. They died, they moved, they merged, they get bought out. All of these things are occurring. So the clients we have just lead us to other people. 10 minutes ago, I had a phone call with someone in a company that I had trained many years ago, and he's now with a different company, right? Loves Sandler. Guess what's going to happen? That's the beauty. The revenue model has changed. This is a lifestyle that I couldn't imagine 32 years ago in terms of income and status in the community. All of those things are wonderful, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have just been here for it, and it's only going to get better. I can see it.
There is. I tell you, technology has, and every time I think, oh, we've hit the pinnacle, we've hit the top. There's no way we could do it.
No.
It's the world never stops. The amount of innovation and technology is unbelievable. Right. And now that we're embedding Sandler into technology and watching it take life in so many different modalities, it's amazing to me.
The other thing I see, when I got started, I think there were maybe 30 of us, and we were all east of the Mississippi.
True.
And now we're in 30 countries, right? I no longer have to tell people who Sandler is. They know Sandler. We're now the biggest, and that's beautiful.
Isn't that amazing how that's changed? Really, you spent half your call in the old days explaining who we were. And now they know all that beforehand, right? Just because of the work that franchisees have done around the country, around the world, actually.
Yeah, the buyers are so much more aware than ever before, and I think that makes it easier for us.
Yeah. And just tell me a little bit about the marketplace. So you're in Detroit. How many other franchisees are there? And what does your client base look like? What was it when you first early days? And what is it now? Types of industries and sizes?
Well, the sizes are bigger. We still have individuals that come to us and invest in themselves, or their company sponsor them. But it's a combination. I did not want to be pigeonholed into one particular type of industry or profession. I wanted us to have little of everything, and that's exactly what's happening. We're in a manufacturing community, but there's so much non-professional selling organizations, insurance, financial planning, all the software, and that keeps growing. So there's no shortage of businesses and industries. It's a little of everything, which is great. And and we learn about all those different things. And today, it's just beautiful the way the business comes in.
I tell you, when you're talking, I always am amazed of how much I learned from being in this business about other businesses.
Of course.
It's just fantastic.
And yet it still comes down to the same things, the issues that they have, and the salespeople that don't know how to sell well. So doesn't look like that's ever going to change.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question because I know we're getting up on time. Talk to me about the culture of the franchise network and whether that's been stable over time, or have you seen that more? I just am so proud of the culture that exists within the Sandler network. It's just fantastic. Do you have a couple of words on that?
It's when I got started, guys that I met, at our conferences say, "Hey, pick up the phone, call me anytime." And I would do that, and we helped each other, and we still do that today. And I have people calling me, and we help each other because we all have the same pretty much issues. I mean, we may be in different geographies, but we got the same issues. And it's, as I said earlier, these are some of my best friends. And it's great. And when we get together at conferences, and we can sit down and just shoot the breeze, and it's very rewarding. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we always call it the Sandler family here, and I think that is true.
Yeah. John Russell just celebrated 30 years.
He's 30.
Yeah. So 2 days apart from ours. And, as an example of a human being, the integrity that exists in the organization is beautiful.
It's amazing. It's awesome. And hopefully, you may be the first one that we could have 3 generations. What do you think? Is it possible? It's possible.
People say to me, hey, Weinberg, why don't you retire? You don't need the money. But this is what I look for. I can't wait to get out of bed every morning. It's beautiful. Yeah, that would be great. 3 generations. Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. I'll tell you, it's one of those things where I don't think it ever gets old. You have the opportunity to make a good living, and you help people, and the stories, they come back, and you get to live through them. And and I always say, you've got a couple hundred franchisees, and you've got 50,000 people coming through the system a year. So the impact of that, and the amount of families that you all touch, and it just kind of cascades down, because even though I may have a mom or a dad in our program, they're teaching their kids, if they happen to be in business, this Sandler stuff. So the ripple effect, the multiplier of what we've done over time is just absolutely mind-boggling in my mind. It's just awesome.
And we change people's lives, including our own. That's the beauty. I think you were at our 25th anniversary. We had a party, and in fact, we were at the building behind us. We had moved a few years ago, and people come up and say, you changed my life. How do you do? You just say thank you.
I know. What can you say? It's awesome. It's just fantastic. I mean, when you hear like, hey, I could pay my kids' education without having the debt, or I paid for, I could retire finally, or I bought a vacation home, or I did X and Y. And I mean, it's humbling, and and there's no words for it. It's just awesome. It's awesome. Hey, Gerry, listen, I know you've been with us for 32 years. You've made this brand with some other, I'd say long-term, really just ambassadors of Sandler. And I just want to say thank you, and thanks for jumping on here today and making yourself available to all those that are in the network and looking to be in the network. So I just wanted to say thank you again, and thanks for joining us.
Well, and thank you for being you, David. Your leadership has certainly helped along the way. So thank you, in the entire Sandler network.
You guys made it easy. I'll see you soon.
Good. Thanks, Dave.
See you then. For more information on Sandler franchising opportunities, go to sandler.com/franchising. And don't forget to subscribe to the No Guts, No Gain podcast on your favorite app.